Welcome, everyone. This is Chana Weisberg. This is In Conversations with Chana. I'm Chana Weisberg, editor of The Jewish Woman. I'm joined today with a special guest in honor of Gimel Tammuz. We thought you would really enjoy hearing from some of the members of our team. And today's guest is Rabbi Tzvi Freeman. Tzvi, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hi. Hi, Chana.
Tzvi, we thought it would be really interesting so many of us have read so many of your articles, seen your recordings, seen so much of your creative work. And I thought it would be really interesting for myself, as well as our viewers, to actually hear the story behind the man and to hear a little about your journey, a little about what motivates you, what inspires you, what brought you to do the things that you do.
You know, there's this beautiful video of these little goslings that were rescued when they were little, and they haven't ever been near water. And then as the goslings grow bigger, they molt and they get the white feathers, and they're big enough now to go to the water. So these whatever they are, the forest rangers or whoever who got them, are now releasing all the adolescent goslings to the water. And they all rush towards the water, and they get their feet wet, and they turn around and run back. And then they run back again, and then they run back. And then finally, one of them falls in the water, and all the other ones are looking, what's going to happen? Well, it looks like he's having fun in the water. So another one goes in the water. And pretty soon, they're all in the water. So you're going to ask, well, why did the
gosling go to the water? Yeah,
right.
Why did it?
Well, where are they supposed to be? That's their natural places to be, in the water. So of course they're in the water. This makes sense. It's not like a decision that you have to make. Should I go this way? Oh, nobody told me that there's water here and that I'm a goose. So now I found out.
So take us a little through your journey of how you found out.
So, yes, I was born in Vancouver. My mother came there from Bangalore. Her family had gone to India from Baghdad when the British left Baghdad. And when the British left India, they left India and came to Vancouver. And my father was from... he was a Canadian, but originally the family was from Romania. But he ran away when I was little, and my mother remarried. And my stepfather was from England, London, survived the bombing of London. So we were in Vancouver, which was considered then to be the end of the world. My father told me that a Jew has to go to the synagogue twice a year. And stand up when the rabbi says stand up, sit down when he says to sit down, and sit there through his entire sermon, and for this you will be forgiven for all your sins.
Is it?
So,
wow.
Who needs that? I mean, it wasn't of interest to me.
Did you believe in God at the time? Was God part of your life?
Yeah, always. Look, my mother is an Iraqi Jew, and she imbued a lot of that spirituality. We weren't really keeping kosher. We never ate pork. We're not really keeping kosher, especially not out of the house. We didn't keep Shabbos, but it was very clear to me that if I needed to get something, the one to ask was God. You know, I asked I want a bicycle. My stepfather's not giving me a bicycle because, he works in the courts and he sees what happens to kids with bicycles. I'm not getting a bicycle. So my mother's can't influence him. So I just have to pray to God and ask God, please, I need a bicycle. Okay, I got a bicycle. But it's raining outside, and this is the Pacific Northwest. This is Vancouver. It's raining. It could rain for the next 2 months, and I just got a bicycle. God, I need it to be sunny tomorrow. Could you please make it sunny? Okay, it's sunny the next. I took those things for granted.
Right.
That's obvious. Um, so we had plenty of atheists that came by our house and I talked to, and my professor was certainly, my teacher in school was certainly an atheist. I said, I have to give that a chance, let me think that through. And I remember this vividly. I'm sitting in the living room, looking out the window and thinking, okay, what would it be like to think like an atheist? I have to see if it can really work. Can you create, can you create an ideology out of this? And I'm trying to imagine it. And there's a breeze outside, and the breeze is rustling the leaves in the tree. And I look at that, and I say, this is stupid.
Wow.
I mean, it's like so obvious. Like, take a look. I don't know what they're talking about,
I'm just curious how this actually ended up, that you ended up learning in a yeshiva in
I'll
New
tell you
York.
what happened. I got to somewhere I was around in England, north of England, and I had a little recorder with me. I played music all the time. I had my guitar strapped on my back, and I was thinking, I'm traveling to here, I'm traveling to there. So I said, when I finish all this traveling, then I'm going to start thinking about what life is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait a minute, hold on. When's the best time to think about life is all about is right now, while I'm traveling and I have no connections. So what is life all about? So I couldn't figure that out. But one thing I could figure is, if you're going to live, you might as well learn to do something good. So what could I learn to do good? I could be a musician, a good musician, maybe a composer. Okay, so I settled on that. And then I was ready to come back home. And when I came back home, I got my job back again teaching guitar. And I was able to pay a teacher to teach me music theory. And then from there, I asked him, when I got the music theory down, who can teach me how to write music? I'm not going to go to university. And there happened to be a famous composer in town who was married to a very wealthy man. Her name was Jean Coulthard, and she had just retired. So I went to her in my torn blue jeans and long hair, and convinced her to give me lessons in music composition, which amazingly enough she did. But then she told one of her graduate students, take this kid and put him in university. And I went there kicking and screaming. But she said so that's what I had to do. And I was back in university. So it was really, a lot of it was that scene on the university campus threw me into a huge bowl of confusion. A real, I guess, identity crisis, because I don't know who I am over here. Am I a classical guitarist, a composer? Am I a rock star? Am I a hippie? Am I an academic, an intellectual? What am I? I have different friends that I'm different people with. And each morning I have to get up and decide not how I'm feeling, but who am I today?
Who am I? Mm-hmm.
And I'm teaching guitar at the same time as trying to get through the grades and writing music and getting into this crowd. And it was very confusing. So at the end of that year, a group of us got together. Again, we're looking for how can we squeeze money out of these government grants. And we got this idea, we're going to take a Volkswagen van, load it up with us, like musicians, poets, actors, artists, and we're going to bring the arts, the fine arts, to the children of lumberjacks up north, in mining towns and lumber towns. And they'll love our art, right? So you can imagine, like, these artists and musicians are all crazy, and they're packed in this Volkswagen van and sleeping in the van or sleeping on some gymnasium floor. And when we put on our shows for these kids, they're laughing at us hysterically and throwing spitballs, whatever. And we have to get along with each other. And you're living in such close quarters with these crazy people. That's when I first felt I'm not these people. And that's something difficult. I still find it difficult to describe. There was this one morning that I got up early in the morning. I decided I got to speak to God again. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't talked to him in a long time. So I had a shower. I got dressed. I'm going to talk to God. And I couldn't.
Hmm.
I couldn't because I felt whatever I said was not authentic. It's not sincere. I'm just pretending. When I was a child, it was sincere. Now it's not.
Hmm.
I remember when I was like biking through England and my bike was breaking down and it's late at night and I've got to bike to the hostel and this bike is not moving and I got to keep going because I have no clue where I am. Like there's no GPS in those days. You know, I just got to keep going. And I started yelling out the only Jewish prayer I knew at the time, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, over and over again with Hashem's name, right? So those moments were sincere. Or the time when I was like, I was in Jerusalem and I got to find my grandaunt's house and I don't even have the address, but I was there once and I got to find it. So I just look up to the heavens, say, God, like you're directing me. You'll get me there, right? That was very sincere, but now it was impossible. I could not be sincere. Something that education, I don't know, these institutions did to me. So I figured, okay, I'll sing. I used to sing songs, to make up my own songs and just sing. So I'll sing to him. But now I'm a trained musician with a trained voice. Everything is also fake. It's all artificial and I can't. And it's bugging me. I desperately need to have this conversation and I can't. It's not coming out. There is nothing sincere. There's not a sincere bone in my body. It's all fake, all fake. And at that point, I noticed right there on this little finger was a teardrop. So I figured that teardrop must have been sincere. There must have been a moment when I really meant it. And that's when that teardrop came.
Wow.
And I figure if I had taken a photo of that teardrop close up with a microscope, I'd be able to see everything that happened in my life from that point on inside that teardrop. I think that was really the turning point. But finally, I went for like this thing that my sister said I had to go to. And this, it's in the afternoon, after the afternoon prayers, mincha. And this guy's talking. It was hard, like the cognitive dissonance. I think, like I said, the only fedoras I'd seen were in gangster movies, but these gangsters had beards. So I'm trying to figure that out. So I'm listening to this guy and he's talking. I don't know what language he's talking. What on earth is he talking about? It sounds very fascinating. I have no clue. Something about light coming in through the stained glass windows and vessels shattering. And so go see what went wrong in the kitchen, you know. And when he opens for questions, it's obvious they don't have any clue what's going on over here. So I grabbed him afterwards. And I said, you got to explain this to me because explain that more. And by this time, I'd read all sorts of books of different types of mystics, philosophies, and the existentialists and the transcendentalists and the Tao and all the Bhagavad Gita, all sorts of different things, Rosicrucians, you name it. Okay. But he's got it like as a sophisticated science with all the details. I can't understand it, but I see it's like making everything look like comic books. So I asked him, so just explain to me, like, what were you talking about? Here's a simple question for you. What's the purpose of life? So he's explaining that there's a kind of light and you have to see that each thing is being created at every moment by this light. He says, I don't see the light. Where is the light? Like we're downstairs near the chapel and where's this light you're talking about? And he says, there's a light that creates each thing. And then there's another light that's greater than that light that encompasses. I don't know what he's talking about. He said, the purpose of life is you have to be able to see when you look at something that it's not just a thing that there, it's light creating it at every moment. I'm trying to imagine light creating it at every moment, like a light show or a laser show. Whatever. Yeah, he says something like that. And then, but you see, the difference is that the light is still within its source. Oh man, what are you talking about? So after all this, I said, look, I'll come and see you tomorrow again. We'll talk some more. And I went outside, and this I remember like it was yesterday. I come outside, and there's this grove of tall willow trees in the July sun. And I look, and they're not willow trees. They're beams of light coming down from the heavens.
And you were not anything.
No, there were no psychedelics involved, just beams of light coming down. Wow. So I came back every day. I argued with this guy every day. he's just a few years older than me, I guess. His name, I found out much later, was Yossi Hecht.
Mm.
And he was one of the most brilliant students in Lubavitch at the time. He became later the Rav of Eilat. He's still there.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So I argued with him, and I thought he was nuts. He had no clue what the world is all about. Never read any philosophy, never read anything else. But he's smart. But I kept on arguing with him. And so just at that time, due to that teardrop,
Wow.
the Lubavitcher Rebbe sent these 4 Shiva students, including Yossi Hecht and Gabriel Marzel, for me to argue with. And then, as soon as that was over, Yossi Hecht's good friend, Rafael Minkovitz, moves to town to be a teacher in the Talmud Torah day school. And he made sure, he knew about me before he came, and he made sure that I would be at his house for every Shabbos.
Mm.
And like his house was my house. I could just like go to, I didn't even knock. I would just, anytime I want, just open the door and walk in and sit down, which is, I really, really needed. Because when I was there, I felt at home more than I felt at home in my parents' house.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then I went through this year when I was the undergraduate society president, teaching guitar, and had an overload of courses to make up for the course I didn't take the first year because I registered late. And I started keeping Shabbos and not being at school for Yom Tov, which was a huge sacrifice. And every morning I would get up and I had, put on my tefillin and say what I was, packing. Ended up being like an hour every morning. Because nobody had told me before you were supposed to do these things. Now I found out. Okay, so I'm doing it. Okay. And learning with Rafael Minkovitz and so on.
I want to fast forward a little bit to your work here at Chabad.org.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little about what you do here?
What do I do? I'm still waiting for somebody to tell me what I'm supposed to do. I sit and I learn stuff and find people to talk to about it and drive them nuts about it. And then when I'm really excited about something and got it organized in my mind, I write it.
What brought you to Chabad.org?
Brought me to Chabad.org. There was a thing called CompuServe, and then there was America Online, which became AOL, and there was the BitNet and other stuff like that. And it was very, very Jewish at the very beginning. I remember on CompuServe, you could see activity in different groups, and like the Jewish group was more active than the Christian group, and everywhere was this Jewish stuff happening. And I had a little Apple IIe clone, and later I got a Mac II, and I was online. You had to dial up each time, and there was this guy YYK, Yitzhak Kazin, and we were doing, answering people's questions, and he asked me to write some Chassidus for the internet. And I said, but it's everything written in English is boring. So he said, write something that's fun. So I wrote down the Sinai files, and that went big on the internet. It wasn't the internet yet. It went big online, and the BBSs and so on. And then I started doing this Souls on Wire, I called it, which was a subscription where I wrote these little meditations. So when the third day of Tammuz in 1994, after the Rebbe's passing, I felt a need to create these little packets, everything that I had learned, and put them in little packets. And I felt it was a travesty that all these people who are seeking for something, and they seek it everywhere else except from the Rebbe, who was such a fount of wisdom, a luminary, but ignored. I felt this was the way, make these little packets. So that was how this Souls on Wire subscription started. And I started creating them and writing them, trying to make it as succinct as possible, be more mobile that way. And, but still profound and deep. And those were doing well. And eventually that got, well, YYK, he dedicated his life to this whole thing, but he didn't live very long. Mm-hmm. And then it was taken over. And these guys who took it over contacted me. And so I was providing those, writing. They wanted more and more. There was only a certain rate I could churn them out at. And then got involved in Ask the Rabbi thing. And then eventually came on full time to Chabad.org. So that's how that happened. But still, if you can tell me what I'm supposed to be doing around here, I'd be very happy.
We're all waiting for those meetings, right?
Whatever excites me, that's what I.
So it's been a number of years since Gimel Tammuz, since the Rebbe's passing. What is, in your opinion, the Rebbe's message for our generation now that we need to take from his teachings?
Mostly that it's up to us. It's mostly this, not so much an idea or word, or as a sense of urgency and responsibility. It's in your hands, and you have the tools, and you could really change the world. How do we do that? Well, one way is by spreading this wisdom and this way of thinking, and but mostly by standing up and showing that you are proud of who you are, and you're not ashamed, and you're doing this all the way. Being real, being authentic. So you learn the Rebbe's ideas, you make them real, and you act that way. You behave with other people that way. For me, that's a huge shift, because, like I said, growing up or attempting to grow up, I was snide and nasty to a lot of people. And I have to learn to listen and make room for other people and work together with other people, not to be the big shot. And on the other hand, you have to be able to stand up with dignity and pride, and this is the way we do things, and be strong. So that combination of these two opposites of, the Rebbe called it like being a needle, a sewing needle. It's got a very sharp end to pierce through the world. But at the other end, there's a hole inside, so it can hold the thread. Mm-hmm. And so you have to have these two opposites inside you if you're going to change the world. So look, there's just so much wisdom there. And it's the wisdom that everybody is looking for and everybody needs today. You have a Rebbe who experienced it all. He experienced the whole history of the 20th century. And he studied both from the greatest in the Torah world and from the giants of science at the University of Berlin and at the Sorbonne. And he's delivering to you this wisdom, which is, this is how you deal with the 21st century. It's all there for you.
Can you give us a sneak peek on any projects in the works or something that you're looking?
I've been trying for a long time to write an article on what is a soul. And such misconceptions that are out there. And the Rebbe presents a very scientific view. I consider it a scientific view, very rational. It gives a lot of power of explanation behind it, and a non-dualist view of the soul, and so that's a very important issue. There's also, I think, our perspective of the world, how we understand the world, I think, is about to change dramatically, because for the last few hundred years, especially since the Industrial Revolution, we started looking at the whole world and everything inside as a bunch of machines. So we have a very flat world. But now the machine has transcended itself. and and we're starting to see the difference between a human being and a machine in a very vivid way. Um, so I'm hoping that this will bring us back to seeing a
You
deeper
mean
depth.
you mean through AI? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and these
Mm-hmm.
transformer and language models
Mm-hmm.
that allow us to have a very different perspective. I worked in high tech for a while, developing educational technologies, and I used to write assembly language and so on. Um, so I see where this is going, and I see the limits of it. It definitely has a ceiling, several ceilings to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it will help us to see the world in a very different way than we've been seeing it, as though it's just a two-dimensional machine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I want to write on that as well. But these are difficult topics. They require a lot of research, a lot of thinking, and then
Sure.
more research and writing. So for every article that gets written goes a lot of time, a
Oh,
lot
I'm
of work.
sure. For
Sometimes it
sure.
takes many years before it
Mm,
can come out. That's how it
right.
works.
Okay. We're looking forward. Thank you so much for joining us, Rabbi Freeman. Thank you for your thoughts. Thank you for your journey, for sharing your journey with us. Thank you for a lot of food for thought about our own that we can apply to our own lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Stay tuned.